see. Okay, we're here. We did it. We're all present. This is so awesome. So we're very excited to share with you about the Sagittarius Solar Month. So many things that are happening. I feel like on the day that the sun moves into Sagittarius, Mercury is with a star called Rasselhag in the crown chakra of Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, the healer, and it's going to go retrograde with this star a few days later, like 4 days later. And then it's going to retrograde all the way back past Antares and to the head of the scorpion, and then back across Antares, and then back across um, Rasselhag. And so something just to be aware of is that this is so Mercury going retrograde is going into a deepening, getting deeper messages from this part of the sky. The other thing is that the sun will enter the constellation Ophiuchus, according to astronomers, on November 30th, and it will align with Rasselhag. Let's see if I wrote the exact date down. I hope I did. Around the mid December, like around the 15th of December. So, so we have an opportunity to deepen the healing process that we're all probably experiencing on some level in some way at this time, and to get the deepening messages. Now, here's the thing about this constellation and this particular star is that it's connected to dreaming. So in ancient times, when people went to the temples of Asclepius, Ophiuchus is also Asclepius, the first thing that they would have people do was go into the dreaming chambers. And whatever they dreamed would be then how they would do the healing, that would tell them what healing process to do with that person. And so dream healing, such a big thing. So we're going to have this so present this whole entire month of solar month of Sagittarius. So exciting. And then, of course, the passage of Mercury over Antares due to the retrograde, it's already been exact. It was exact like November 10, I think. November 10, it was exact. And then it comes back again on December let me see, 5. Um, it comes back to Antares and then back December 8th or 9th, depending on your time zone. And then again on December 22nd or 23rd, again, depending on your time zone, it'll be three exact passes over Antares, the heart star of the scorpion, also known as the serpent, also known as the dragon. So we're looking at this heart energy. It's also known as the golden gate or the key to the galactic center because it's very near galactic center where that star is. And that was the gateway to ascension or gateway to some, if we think of the center of the galaxy being like a wormhole to someplace else, that black hole being a gateway to someplace else. So many things that are being amplified by this Mercury retrograde. So exciting. And then on December 5th, I think it is, I'm just double check here, is the Sun conjunction to Mercury. And it's happening at 14 degrees Sagittarius, also known as the Great Attractor, the place in the sky that we connect with the Great Attractor. And the Great Attractor is something in our universe that our Milky Way galaxy and all the galaxies are moving toward very quickly. Like 600 meters per second, 372 miles per second. It's like we're moving in that direction. We're being attracted into that direction. So what are we attracting? I always think of the great attractor. What are we attracting? Here's the sun and Mercury together on this date of this exact conjunction of the sun and Mercury retrograde. So the Cazimi, the magical point, the whatever, also aligned with the great attractor. Okay, so these are some of the things I feel like I've already said quite a lot. I want to just pass it along to see what anyone else has to add to this or wherever else you might want to take it.
I love that connection with the dreaming and the new ways and the pathways of thinking. And I think that is highlighted during the whole month with this Mercury retrograde in a sign that is knowing through the intuition, the fire, the guts. And before even recording, we were talking about education and how we need to reframe the ways that we are teaching the children for the future, and also the ways that we learned in the past, right? Like we are learning forever, like it's a lifelong learning. And I was working in education for a long time, and it's only built for people who have Mercury in air, in a way, right? It's only built through words and memory and like communication. But 3/4 of the population have Mercury natally, either in earth, fire, or water. And the way of learning of these people is different. And during Mercury retrograde is highlighting that the way of learning is different. Like the way of learning for fire is a lot more connection with the intuition, with their guts, with their passion, with the movement, with action. Like wherever you feel to act on is the way that you're going to get new information into your system. For water signs will be more into like the feelings and the symbolic, and then earth needs to touch wherever they are learning. So I think this is very important during also reframing Mercury retrogrades to see that it's a time for reformulation of anything that we have been putting into the world. And the same for the people who natally have Mercury retrograde. But in this case, it's very interesting because besides everything that Kajelin was saying about all these stars that are being activated, Mercury is going to oppose Jupiter 3 times during this time, and is emphasizing the axis of knowing. So we have the Gemini side where we have Jupiter that is all about logic, but in a very magical way. Is the researcher, is the one that is collecting the data, and is, I always say the metaphor that is like the one who enters into a forest and sees the magic in every single leaf and sees all the colors, but it doesn't see the whole forest. Whereas Sagittarius is much more like, okay, there is the forest and I'm here with my horse and I'm going there and I see the horizon, but I see a whole one truth in capital letters. So with these oppositions, we have this emphasis of there is the truth for each one of us, the one truth that is really in alignment with our being. And then there are the thousand colorful truths that they are also part of reality, right? Like the rainbow prism that we can see reality through that, and the way we express the storytelling that is so emphasized with Jupiter in Gemini, how human beings don't learn abstract concepts. We learned through stories. And this has been proved, like marketing, they're saying all the time, if you want to sell something, tell a story, because they will remember you much more than if you keep saying all the benefits and tax and like the abstract concept that they're going to get. It's like people forget about that, but they will remember the story. So I think this month is such a good time to review all the stories that keeps our fire ignited, and to really tell ourselves more stories, to tell our children more stories, because I'm not a mother myself, but if I had children, I will be telling them every day a different story in order for them to really remember the concepts that the story is enhancing. But as adults, we also have this inner child that needs to be passionate about life, and who needs to see in the middle of intense times as we are, and Pluto is already in Aquarius. So it's this time of finding flames within our life, whatever is happening, how can we be passionate about the new adventures that we are embracing, and it's a month for like reigniting the fire of the story in this way. And the three oppositions are November 18th, then December 4th, and then December 26th. And the last one will be also emphasized with Saturn in Pisces squaring Jupiter. That is also very intense. So we have a lot of energy in these mutable signs.
Yes, I love this focus on the storytelling and remembering. And something that I thought was really interesting around the timing of that Mercury Cazimi is that just the day before, we also have a Venus gate that is corresponding with the throat chakra. So here we are again with that emphasis. And that conjunction between Moon Venus is happening at 27 degrees Capricorn, which is also something that we've been working so much with Pluto in these past few years. But it does feel very much like, okay, how do we get to go back and reclaim perhaps the highest essence of what we've been learning with Capricorn? Hi, Kitty. And the remembering aspect, I think, is very associated with Capricorn as well, the earth. I love so much how you brought in all of the different ways of learning, Maud, because even if we look at this month, we have all of the elements represented somewhere in the sky really strongly. And it does feel like we're kind of, I get this visual of how are we kind of juggling all together and passing the baton back and forth, like, but in the essence of a team, which I'm also seeing as the Pluto in Aquarius. Like there's something team oriented here that if we're able to kind of see how all of the different elements can actually work together within ourselves, that we won't feel this split, which is also a big theme right now. You know, politically, there's all of this division, there's so much vitriol in the field, there's a lot of high energy, passion, anger, resentment on all sides of the field, but it feels like simultaneously an opportunity to bring more unity and really see the what each team member is offering to our collective awakening. So it starts with us always. You know, do we deny or repress a certain part of ourselves? Maybe because it wasn't validated or a way of knowing was not validated when we were young, to now, can we validate those ways of knowing? Can we validate ourselves? I think that's going to be a big theme of the Mars in Leo and all of the retrograde with Mars and kind of between the Leo and Cancer of the self-love, the inner validation of our own fire. And can we, you know, inform the people around us who maybe can support us without feeling like, you know, it has to be this competition, combat. It's like, what if it was more about working together? So that's what I really feel is very strong. We're also coming into Sagittarius season with Saturn in Pisces freshly stationed direct after being retrograde for a few months. And Saturn is what helps us to give form to our reality, the structure of our reality, but it's in Pisces. So we've been dissolving the structure of our reality. We've been looking at all the different options. We've been feeling into all the different ways that we can integrate and see the world. And I always view Pisces as one of those archetypes that can get along with all of the other archetypes. It's never like, oh no, we're not dividing here. It's mutually inclusive. It's like, oh, you're not part of the circle, come here. So that connection with the Pluto in Aquarius and then the Saturn in Pisces, I really feel like this is a big time to draw our circle a lot wider, of course, within ourselves and starting with all of the beautiful gems of wisdom that you've both shared so far, with starting with our ways of knowing and how we're really communicating about it. And, you know, coming back to that Moon Venus gate, the capacity for kind communication can go a very long way, especially when there is difference of stance and opinion. So I think that's going to be really important this month.
I love that. And I love, Nora, that you really spoke to the potential for this Mercury retrograde to have some healing of the division that we're experiencing in this world. Because, you know, Mercury retrograde is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a sign of our worldviews, our kind of life and world philosophies, um, our higher beliefs. There's so much around our bigger, like Gemini, right, is where we get all the facts, all the information. And then Sagittarius is how does that distill into bigger beliefs and philosophies and worldviews? And there is kind of coming out of this time of election in the US, there's so much division and like you said, the vitriol. And while yes, like all honoring and not dismissing the issues that really matter to our heart, we can hold them important to our heart without making people with a different belief system like the other and creating that division and that way. And I feel like this Mercury retrograde really has some healing medicine for those that want to tap into it on how can we heal some of that division and split within ourselves so we can create more vision, maybe yes, a Sagittarius vision, but more unity and healing that split. And I feel like with this Mercury retrograde that it's really opposing Jupiter, who's, kind of considered the ruler of Sagittarius. I like to think of Jupiter more as like I like to think of the planets as temple keepers of the sign, but I would say Jupiter is the temple keeper of the Sagittarius mysteries, being over in Gemini at the time of this Mercury retrograde, especially the time of this cazimi. It's like, how are we going to create some healing with our beliefs and worldviews and life philosophies? It's Jupiter and Gemini. New learning. It's the expansion that comes from new learning, being open to new possibility, being open to understanding other people's truths and that someone's truth can be true for them. And we can have a very different perspective and a different truth for us. And it doesn't make the other person wrong. So I feel like there's some really powerful medicine on how can we hold other people's perspectives without getting stuck in the division and the separation, because ultimately we are in this time of we're midwifing a new world, and we are in a time of evolution. We can see it in the United States chart with the Pluto return and Pluto coming up to the United States south node. We're in this huge time of transition, not just for the US, but for the whole world. And I don't believe that the trajectory is set in stone on how the evolution is going. Each of us that are doing the inner work to heal the division and separation within ourselves, we are positively influencing the collective. And it can, the transition can be more easeful than I think many of us kind of sense that it could be. And so it comes with healing things within ourselves first. And also, I just see with this Mercury retrograde as well, and Sagittarius opposite Jupiter, squaring Saturn, there's something really powerful too around what deeper belief systems that we've kind of integrated and distilled that we need to do some alchemy on so we can really kind of expand the field of our horizon and really like aim our arrow towards our big vision, our big dream, our inspiration. Where do we have those self-limiting beliefs that say that that are essentially blocking us from really attuning and really aligning to that? And I think it's so interesting that this Mercury retrograde is also playing into that second like Jupiter Saturn square that we're experiencing, because the Jupiter Saturn square, it's this balancing of Jupiter expansion, Saturn contraction, Saturn wanting to give things form and structure, and Jupiter wanting to expand past our current form and structure and reality and expand us into a new reality. And giving birth is like actually literally physically birthing a baby is this experience of expansion and contraction, and how can we be with that? And it really actually takes surrendering to the constant expansion and contraction so our bodies soften enough to let the baby through our birth canal, which also is a metaphor for creating everything in life. So if we can, how can we dance with the expansion and the contraction and surrender to it? We're really being called to birth something new into our reality.
Yeah, I love that. And it connects a lot with the Mars retrograding into Cancer, because that is also where we need to take action. And something that I've been struggling a little bit lately with spirituality and all of this of go with the flow. And the other day I was listening to Rick Lavin, yeah, and another astrologer in Astrology Hub, and Rick Lavin was saying the only ones that they are going with the flow are dead fish, because normally we are like, and he said like flow with the go, and I loved it because it's like, yes, you flow but you take action, you're alive, you are not dead. So this idea that we just allow things to happen doesn't make any sense, because there is so much change going on collectively that the actions we're taking are very important. And not taking an action is an action by itself. So expecting that things are going to change sometimes without doing nothing is kind of like craziness in a way. It's this idea of like doing the same several times, expecting different results is the definition of insanity. So it's like sometimes what we're doing. And for me, as a triple Aries in spirituality, I have struggled many times with this idea of taking action, of being assertive is not spiritual. And it's like, now I'm a little bit more like, no, it's a different way of being spiritual. It's like you listening to your gut and you go for it. So I think that Mars in Leo is telling us that we need to take action in order to make those creativity, those dreams, those projects into a reality. And that action is going to go backwards since December 6th. So sometimes we go into the world, we create something, we share our poem, we share our business, we share our foundation, we share our whatever we are creating. And until the world doesn't give us feedback, we cannot really have clarity. So I think many times we are expecting to have clarity in order to take action. And here, what the world is telling us is the opposite. It's like you take action and the clarity will come. And the whole thing about the month is that it's like this knowing axis that is about the gut with the Mercury retrograde, and then the Mars in Leo saying, what is it that you're passionate about? What is it that it like ignites your heart, and what is it that you want to create? And it doesn't matter how old we are, it doesn't matter if we are 15, 25 or 1905, we are always creating something. So even if we are retired and work as a professional way of earning a living is not part of our life, we are always creating something. So it's like if we want to weave with people around and we are like complaining that there are nobody around, maybe just put flyers or just talk to a few people, and then maybe you gather these people and you are creating something. It doesn't have to be huge, but there is an action involved that is very important. Like, what is it that your heart is asking for? And then from December 6th until the end of Mars retrograde, we have this like going back and reintegrating within ourselves those actions and more like a strategy. I always see the Mars retrograde as a way of really sensing our strategy into the world. Like, but in order to do that, we do need to take action first. So from now to December 6th, I think it's very important to go towards whatever we are passionate about, to see what is happening when we put it into the world. And if it doesn't go as we want, instead of like I don't know the word, but it's like doing that to ourselves. We just reframe it. We just change it. Maybe it just needs a little tick. Maybe it's just tweaking here and there, and that's it. It's like That self-love confidence, I think, is very important. And then it will go into Cancer, so it will get more emotional afterwards. But that is not in this month. But in this month, it starts this retrograde. And I also see very powerful the opposition of Mars and Venus in December 12th in 5 degrees of Aquarius, because that Venus is giving us a little bit of love. That Pluto ingress that has been quite intense globally. So it's like, okay, we also can just relax in our bodies, and that cosmic dance between Mars and Venus, and what is that we are taking action, and what is composting with that Pluto ingress into Aquarius. So we take action for the new world.
Hi everybody back. I've been having Mercury retrograde experience. I think it's the internet, so I came in, I'm sitting by my router and hoping that will help the situation. But anyway, I know I missed a lot of what people said, but the one thing I just want to mention is that the Mars retrograde is starting in the constellation of the Crab. So it's in Leo, but it's with a part of the crab that is known as the beehive cluster. And so I wanted to bring that in, and also just to follow up on working in unity, because the bees all work together to make the hive work. And so there's a very strong emphasis on that. And it's going to retrograde all the way back to the star Procyon or Procyon. There's different ways of pronouncing that star. That is in the stellar gateway that we've been associating with, the gateway of our ancestral origins. Sirius is in that stellar triangle, as well as Betelgeuse, also called the Winter Triangle. And there's a whole lot more I could say about that, but just that's in the constellation, or just beneath the constellation of the Twins. So even though it's in the sign of Leo, it starts its retrograde in the Crab with the beehive cluster, and it's going back into Cancer, but it's going to be in the constellation of the Twins. So this is just another example of how the signs have to do with the seasons, and the constellations are the backdrop the seasons move through. And I'll just complete this by saying, as I think Jamie, you were talking about possibilities, and then I was talking, or maybe it was Mar, I can't remember. Anyway, but I'm remembering that Mar did a summit some years ago on I am possible, or taking impossible and making it possible. And so if we think about the dreaming energy that's being really activated with the Mercury retrograde, then we could imagine that. And also Sagittarius has been associated with dreaming the impossible dream. So we have this opportunity to continue to dream what may seem impossible and make it possible in our reality. So I'm just complete with that. Thank you.
This is a really juicy Sagittarius season because already we're working with this energy of the spiral, mutable energy, everything moving around, lots of flexibility and adaptability and alchemy with being a mutable sign. Um, but so much is shifting in terms of almost foreshadowing really the next few years as well. I'm always a fan of Sagittarius season as a reconnecting with the vision anyway, but that's an extra strong theme this month because we are going to have our final full month with the nodes in the Aries Libra axis. They're going to shift next month, like into 2025, into Pisces Virgo. And because of the nature of the way the planets are working together, we've got a few almost like culmination points as well. So having the opposition between Mars and Venus also as the hosts of the nodal axis, and we're coming to this full-on opposition. When we have something in opposition, we can really see it. It's like a full moon. We can really see clearly what the dynamic is, what the patterns are. So we could see the opposition, but then we can know, well, what's the opportunity here? What's the invitation? How do these these planets, these beings, these parts of us want to work together in a new way. And the really fascinating thing is Venus is going to be coming to a conjunction with Pluto just a few days after her conjunction with the moon. So to set that throat chakra Venus gate, reclaiming in our voice. But then December 7th, Venus enters Aquarius and is conjunct Pluto, also Ceres, goddess asteroid Ceres. They will be conjunct, all three of them together. And so it really feels like this um, connection with information, that water of life that is Aquarius, but in a way that is very nourishing and nurturing and appreciating the ending and beginnings of cycles. That's what Ceres teaches us. She teaches us about loss and grief and change, but how do we really honor that process, especially going through that whole life cycle that Venus is going through with Pluto and then opposite Mars. So Venus is going through a death. It's some aspect of our creative or relational way of being is going through an ending, but then inherently a new beginning. And so what does that look like for you in your chart? Where do you have these early degrees of Leo and Aquarius? Because these are almost like nexus points that we are going to continue to come back to again and again over the next few years while we're in this sort of passing the baton of one way of being to the next. So I think it's just another nod to that cyclical awareness. What is the information that is truly nurturing to you? How can you perhaps allow the information or even information cycles to die? The ones that are not supportive, the ones that are not life-giving. But also, how can you allow yourself to be almost armored with truth? Is another way to see it as we're facing off in these oppositions with Mars. Because a lot of times it can cause us to feel like we have to choose one or the other when we're working with such a strong opposition. But they can both be right, they can both be valuable, they can both be helpful, but we really have to, I think, do our best to be clear. And I think this is where Pluto is actually helping. It's kind of like we're going to let some element of what is not true die. And we might have, with the Saturn and Pisces, we might have some very strong attachments to a worldview and a perception of reality that we don't want to see it die. So that feels like a really a bigger story that all of our collective issues are couched within. It's our attachment to an old worldview or an old way of knowing. But really, I think if we shift to the opportunity, I always see Sagittarius as possibility posse. And if we, tap into the possibility and also keep working, like Mars says, that I think that's really the way forward. There's a very famous Sagittarian. We could say happy birthday, happy solar return to all the Sagittarians. But Mark Twain, he would always say, um, inspiration will find you working. So, if you're feeling uninspired or if you're feeling down or depressed, or if you're just feeling like things are not flowing the way you want them to, you work on something, take some kind of action, even if you're not sure where you are or where it's going to be. So that's what I'll say for now.
I love that. Inspiration will find you working. That's always been so true in my life. I mean, that's how I'm an astrologer now, is because I just loved learning about it. I was so inspired about it. And I've actually found within my own life, time and time again, I found myself doing whatever professionally I was just so inspired by, because I was so passionate and enthusiastic about it, that people like started giving me work opportunities because I was just so enthusiastic about it. So I love that. And I'm really just kind of tuning into the Mars retrograde for a moment. I love the wisdom that everyone's shared around it. And Mars it's how we direct our life force energy out into the world, that sun, solar life force energy out. Venus is how we direct our solar life force energy inward. So we're kind of thinking when there's Mars, Venus, it's our Venus, our inward directed energy. How do we attract and magnetize in? And then Mars, how do we take action out in the world? How are we a go-getter for what we want and what we're passionate about in the world? And when Mars is retrograde, I do find it is important to slow down and to slow down how we take action, because I love Mar, how you spoke about we need to we need to do action in a new way. If we never disrupt the way we've been doing action around something, we're never going to get to a new place or achieve a new result in life or align with a new timeline in life. But in order to change how we take action, oftentimes we have to slow down and be in a pause and a reflect and reset, to kind of shift and change the pattern, because retrogrades are about reorienting our relationship with that planet. So Mars, we are reorienting our relationship with how we take action in the world. And the Leo and the Cancer mysteries are the kind of the keys, the medicine on how can we shift and change action in this time. And when a planet is retrograde, there is more of a yin energy. So when Mars is retrograde, if we're just kind of doing the same thing and it's like, I'm just going to take action, 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 I'm going to push, 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 try to make something happen. If I just work harder, then, to kind of achieve the goal I'm wanting, maybe I just work harder and keep on pushing. Well, that's actually, we're going to just end up with our wheels spinning. In that place, especially as Mars goes retrogrades into Cancer, it's like our wheels spinning in water where we're actually like not getting anywhere. So I do feel as Mars is retrograde, it is important to honor the slowdown and the pause and the reflection on how we take action, so we can envision a new way to take action in the world. And I do also want to note that the new moon and Sagittarius is, it's really kind of both the new moon and the full moon are making squares to our Pisces planets right now. So the new moon and Sagittarius is going to be squaring Saturn, and the full moon is going to be squaring Neptune. I mean, there's a little bit of an orb, but I think they're relevant. And so the kind of overall message I'm receiving on that, when we're talking about Sagittarius and Pisces and Gemini, because that full moon is activating the Gemini and Jupiter and Gemini as well. The mutable axis is about possibility. It is about how we can bridge realities and shapeshift into new possibilities, new timelines. So there is so much here about connecting into new possibilities and new timelines, and having the I love, Nura, you spoke about clarity, the clarity we need to really kind of shift and change trajectories and change directions in life.
Beautiful. I'm imagining we need to start wrapping this up because I was gone for a little while, but yeah.
Yes. No, I just wanted to add something a little bit before we move into anything else about the action that I feel is very relevant, that we are so conditioning sometimes to think that action is doing more. And sometimes what action means is the one thing that we need to be doing, and that is doing less of the things we don't need to be doing. And sometimes distraction and action is very different. So maybe we have a very busy schedule, and what we need to be doing is less of that and more of what is we are passionate about. So about like when we're talking, and especially with Mars in Leo, is much more about connecting with that inner fire and taking the action towards that thing that we are truly passionate about, but we are very afraid because Pluto is in the opposite side. So it's just like that, because many times, like I felt it in the conversation, it's not about working more, it's about really doing less and doing more of the right things that we are passionate. So I just wanted to say that because it was like, yeah, I needed to take action towards that.
Yeah. And distraction contains action.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I think it's time to wrap up, and I'll just say quickly. One of the things I wanted to mention that didn't get a chance was that Mars is the planet that goes retrograde the least often, only every couple years. Venus goes every year and a half. That'll happen next year in March, and then Mercury is the one that goes retrograde the most. So we have happening in this solar month the most frequent retrograde planet Mercury going retrograde and the least frequent Mars going retrograde. So that just seems like an important factor. So if anybody has anything they want to say quickly, like in a couple sentences to wrap up, that would be great. And then we'll see you in the Capricorn solar month.
I am a fan of just reminding everyone of this, that the one with the biggest vision wins. This is something that my clients will know. I'm saying this almost every single session. But if the world's vision for you is bigger than the vision you have for yourself, guess whose vision wins? The world's vision. So I really feel like to sum everything up that we've been talking about, it's really cultivating that vision for yourself and let your vision be the biggest one for you. Mic drop.
Right. All right, so I think then maybe we're complete. And I just want to also mention that there'll be articles to some of the stars and things that were mentioned in the show notes if people want more about that. And some other content that you can, about Mercury retrograde, Pluto going into Aquarius, things like that. So we'll put those in the show notes, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the Capricorn solar month.
Hi, everyone.
Bye, everybody.